Welcome back. You're still tuned into Halftime Report, but let's continue our conversation on the US Biosecure Act and what kind of opportunities it could bring up for Indian companies and whether they are tangible or not. To discuss this, we have with us Sibaji Biswas, who's the CFO of Syngene International, and Vishal Manchanda, who's the Pharma Analyst at Systematix Group, joining in now. Mr. Sibaji as well as Vishal, thank you very much for taking the time out. Well, Mr. Biswas, if I could just start the conversation with you and ask you about a basic question on whether or not the US Biosecure Act is going to be a tangible opportunity for Indian CDMOs and CROs, or do you think that we just have way too much competition and we're probably lagging behind in terms of R&D as well as capabilities at this point?
Thanks, Ekta, for the question. I think it's a very tangible opportunity for sure. Today the innovator companies, be it big pharma or biotech, they have a lot of outsourced activity done out of China. And under the Biosecure Act, as you understand, over the next 8 years, they have to gradually withdraw and find alternative supply locations. So the act of diversifying or de-risking the supply chain has already started. It's a big opportunity because the volume that is currently happening in China is quite huge, many, many times bigger than what happens in India. Now, India has the talent, the infrastructure which can be scaled up, the capital that's coming in, and also, the expertise to scale up very quickly and capture it. It's also good that there is a 6 to 8 year period because the scale up will happen over that period. So there's no deluge of opportunity that's expected in the next few months, but over the next 3 to 5 years, which I say mid to long term, there is a structural advantage that Indian CROs and CDMOs have. And I think the industry is well placed to capture that opportunity.
Okay. Well, just to follow up with regards to that, Mr. Biswas, where do you think the slip between the cup and the lip lies for Indian companies? Because there are some skeptics who say that the opportunity might not be as tangible for Indian companies, probably because there is competition which is emerging from US as well as Europe at this point in time, as well as other Southeast Asian countries as well. Say, for example, the Taiwans of the world or the South Koreas of the world. So in that context, do you think that our share of incremental revenue or projects would be lesser?
I don't think so. And let me explain you why I feel the way I feel. Of course, there will be some work that will go back to the Western world, but the cost advantage that India has and China, in all probability, has offered over a period of time cannot be wished away, right? Plus, India today offers scientific expertise at the level which is at the global level. So I call this an Indian model, right? Get the global level expertise, that quality of science being delivered at India price. That's too attractive a proposition for the Western world to kind of not turn a blind eye to. So the big opportunity definitely is going to come to India. Now, obviously, some work will go back to US, some work will go back to Europe, and some work will go back to some of the East Asian countries. But the volume and the scale that we are talking about is very big. And there are not many places in this world which can scale up to the extent that is required to, in the next 6 to 8 years, move work out of China and actually make it available to the extent it is required. So I am very positive about the trend in the next 3 to 5 years time for the Indian CRO CDMO industry.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Vishal, what would your view be? Because there is that grandfathering option, which is available where companies don't really need to work on any kind of opportunity till 2032, or the transition is up till 2032. So does that push the can down the road according to you?
I think such an extension was very much required. It's almost impossible to kind of transition your CDMO partner from China to an alternative destination, maybe in the next 6 months or 1 year, and that too at a scale at which China is operating. Like if you look at Wuxi alone, my sense is they would have about $6 billion of revenues annually, which is way larger than any Indian CDMO operating. So looking at the scale of the volume that's happening in China and their dependence on US, I think the large part of this revenue that the CDMOs generate in China are coming from the US. So we needed that window, but I think we'll start seeing an impact on the growth rates. At least the early stage projects should start coming into India imminently. And I think what will go to the West is the high value projects, and what will come to India imminently would be the high volume projects. So at least for the high volume projects, wherein you need large tonnages of API, India, the cost advantage is way too high for India. So like the West cannot at all, maybe the West cannot manufacture those products profitably at the price the innovator companies would want their CDMO partners to manufacture for them. So I think the large volume projects should imminently start coming to India.
Okay, so you expect high volume and not really high value projects coming in. And that ties in with the question about our R&D capabilities, whereas we might have the manufacturing capabilities. But Vishal, which are the companies that you think which will be at the forefront to capitalize on this opportunity?
So I think the primary names that strike to me is Divi's, Suven, Aarti Pharma Labs, Syngene, obviously, which has got one of the best spread in the value chain. They are into discovery, they are into manufacturing, they are into biologics, they are into small molecules. So I think all of these names that come to my mind imminently on who could be the large beneficiaries here.
Okay. Well, Newland Labs made some interesting comments. They said that they're getting inquiries, Vishal, but they're not seeing, but one needs to be cognizant of the fact that they are API companies. So how does that tie in terms of, Newland? Do you think that they might actually not get that incremental order inflow because they're an API company? Make us understand why that's important in the larger scheme of things.
So my sense is, being an API company, there would be some reluctance from an IP standpoint. So companies, the innovator partners become very choosy when they want to outsource the final API to a Indian partner, because they want protection of their IP around that, and that should not get compromised. So innovators are very selective when it comes to outsourcing the API, but they might be more liberal about outsourcing the intermediate of a product. So we'll have to see how the situation evolves, how innovators adopt to this. So, but they need to choose an Indian partner, because the West does not have that kind of capacities. Also, they don't have that kind of a pool of population to support such kind of large transition that's expected to come. So I think India has to be an option, and how the innovator would respond to the situation in terms of they'll have to kind of.
Okay, all right. Well, Mr. Biswas, I'm just going to ask you questions with regards to Syngene in specific now. Y'all have mentioned on your conference calls in the past 2 quarters that, it is a big opportunity for y'all. In fact, y'all are participating in pilot projects at this point in time. There's a 50% year-on-year increase in requests for proposals that you've seen, which is the highest that you've seen in probably 4 years. Just tell us, what is the on-ground situation with Syngene at this point, the impact of the US Biosecure Act? What are you all seeing on your books right now?
Actually, we are very excited, very optimistic about what we are seeing on the ground. The number of inquiries, the exploratory discussions that are happening, the client visits, really high compared to what we have seen in the past. As you have said, RFPs have gone up in the last 2 quarters, but one should be very clear that, not everybody will just jump into the bandwagon. People will try, test, and then decide on their partners. So we are in that period where we are actually doing pilot projects and exploratory projects. And we believe with the kind of expertise that we have with Syngene, Syngene is an integrated, business which actually starts from early stage drug discovery and goes up to manufacturing. And we have actually global level capabilities across the value chain. we are very well placed to deliver on these pilot projects. So we are very optimistic about the mid to long term. It will take time. There is nothing which will happen in the next 1 or 2 quarters, but over the mid to long term, structurally, I believe we are in a position of an advantage. And Syngene being the business leader in this space, particularly in the research area, I think we are very, very well placed.
Okay, all right, Mr. Biswas, as well as Vishal, we're going to leave it on that note. I'm sure we're going to revisit this discussion many more times as time goes by. Thank you very much for joining in and speaking with us about the US Biosecure Act.